We are at IEM Katowice. It's the first day of the playoffs, and we're sitting down with Steel. 9 years ago, you were here as an observer, and I think for a couple of years in a row. Now you're back as an analyst. You know, it feels like you're going up in the world.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I came here. I was working in IT because funny things happen in esports, and then I was hired to be here. I did the observing for the event. That was the event that Virtus Pro won. And then I went back to Canada and played for Abba Power, and then the rest is history.
Well, that's one way to put it. Look, you're back on a broadcast, you know, for the first time after quite a while. I think it was like a couple of summits that you did in a row, you know, and that's pretty much all the broadcast work you did for a long time in CS. Obviously, in between, like playing and all that stuff. But yeah, just tell me how it's been, you know, to be back on the broadcast for the tournament.
It's a learning experience because there's so much that's changed about, especially like when you think about the CS Summit, it's not like that was a super professional setting, right? It was a cozy, chill, just sit down, talk about whatever you want, talk about the game if you want, talk about not the game if you want. So it was very relaxed, laid back, kind of everyone could just like come in and out. And yeah, you had like set assigned games, like, oh, you're gonna be on this couch at this time. But then like you might be sitting down with some random people and not even talking about the game. But then for this, you come in and it's like, you're working with like a full production team where you have to work with other people and just be like, hey, okay, I want to talk about this thing before the game. Can you queue up this clip or this graphic or whatever? And then you have to, like when you're on the stage, you have to like talk back to the producers or make sure that like, oh, this person's going to be sending it off to this interview. And then when it comes back from the interview, they're going to say this thing. And, you know, I have these talking points. Yeah. Am I going to get to them? Is it going to be something that I can pivot to? Or is it going to be something that I just like spent time researching and preparing, but we're going to run out of time or something else is going to happen? And just being able to navigate that in real time is a learning curve for me right now. So I think I'm getting better with it. Mm-hmm. I think I'm mentally preparing for several talking points. And then if I can get to them, I can get to them. If I can't, that's just like the nature of the beast because of time constrictions or whatever might happen. But I'm also getting more comfortable with bouncing off of my like coworkers on the stage. So I think with Maniac, for example, I feel like I can get into conversations with him a lot easier, whereas like with others, I was more, oh, they say a point, I say a point, and that just like figuring out what works for me is interesting to discover.
Considering, you know, the lack of experience on this type of a tournament, you know, as a broadcaster or in any sort of role, were you surprised to do so much of the playoffs? You were just talking you're going to do a bunch of those games. So yeah, I mean, this is your first time back, and you're already, you know, on the big stage, kind of.
I thought they would let me in easy, but they really just threw me into the deep end. I like to think of it as like a trial by fire. So if I do well here, maybe that opens up other opportunities. But it is definitely it's definitely a little stressful, but I think it's good. If I'm able to do this well, then it's going to be good for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. So I just need to make sure that I come in strong.
No, this interview is only going to go out after the tournament, but I think it's still, you know, fun or whatever you want to call it to go back and look at predictions in hindsight. Mm-hmm. What do you think will happen in the playoffs?
I think it's going to be like a Spirit G2 finals. I don't know why I feel like G2 is going to beat FaZe, but okay. There's just something about watching them the last time that they played. And then also, I was talking to Nico and Taz in the lobby a couple nights ago, and I'm like, you know what? These guys, I don't know. There's something about them. I think they're going to do well. Mm-hmm. And then I think Spirit's just going to crush through anyways. Maybe Mouse Sports, well, no. G2's going to beat FaZe, then they're going to beat Mouse, then they're going to go into the finals. Spirit's going to crush Falcons or Ents, whoever makes it through. The Ents Falcons thing, I don't know. I don't know who's going to win there because it could go either way. They're both so new, but Ents has the crowd. But if there was no crowd, I'd probably give it to Falcons. So that's going to be an interesting angle there.
A few months ago, obviously, you know, you announced that your ban from Valve was going to be lifted at the beginning of 2025. Yeah, what was it like when you found out after 10 years you would be unbanned?
It was, it wasn't something that I was expecting to just jump back into competing. It was more so the lines of, I don't want to be defined by that. And like the way that I was thinking about it was like, you know how like people have on their gravestones, like they just talk about the person, like husband, father, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, for me, it was just gonna be like match fixer. I'm like, for fuck's sake, man, like, can I just move away from this? Like it was like one moment in time. I've changed in so many different ways and in so many years since then. Like I went through, it's not even just like I changed in one direction. It's just like so many things have happened in my life since then.
Yeah, I mean, what does it mean? I mean, you've spoken a little bit about like what your plans are, but when you find out, are you thinking like, okay, what's my way back into this? You know, you obviously started playing a little bit before that already, and like, just tell me about your mindset, like when you found this out and like thinking about what are the opportunities here?
Well, originally, so I was playing Valorant still, but it was the end of the season and there wasn't really much to do. And no matter Valorant or CS, I hate pugging. I've spent so many years and so many thousands of hours doing it that I just can't mentally engage with it. So one day I'm like streaming PUBG and I'm like, oh, I'm bored, I want to play something else. And I just loaded up Counter-Strike. I'm like, oh, this is fun. And then I was thinking, well, if there's nothing else to do and I'm just gonna be streaming for a little bit, why not do like stream team or play the cash cups or play FPL? Because that's gonna be a little bit more engaging for me. So then I started doing it and then I'm like, oh, this is fun. And I kept doing it. And I'm like, well, the next Valorant season is not for 6 months. So what's the worst that could happen? And so I just kept doing it. And then CS2 came out and I'm like, oh, I'll just like ask because everyone keeps asking, CS2 is a new game. Are you unbanned? Blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, I'll just ask Valve. And then they said, yeah, we'll do it. Here's the date. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
That's it? There was no conversation? There was no like, you have to do this, you have to do that, anything like that? They just told you?
They said it was based off of certain criteria. And it was like, so it's like the 10-year mark from when I made that post saying like, oh, sorry, I think it was on Facebook. So it was that, and then it was like 2 or 3 things. And it's like, since you've already done this, then you would be unbanned then. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then that was, I didn't ask for like the other guys. I didn't ask for, I assume that it would be the same for them. And all they'd have to do is ask and they would get the clarification if they want to do that. But I asked for myself. And then after I found word, I messaged a few of them and I said, hey, if you want to know, this is what I did, you should do the same.
You're talking about criteria. Are you comfortable sharing any of that? Like what they told you?
It was just
what you
like
needed to do?
no further instances of blah, blah, blah. And like, it was just basically making sure that you had a clean slate since then and didn't fuck around because otherwise I would have found out. So.
Right. You've said before, you know, that I think it was a couple of months into like playing with some of these mixed teams that you were talking about in like ECL and whatever, that competing isn't necessarily a top priority for you at the moment, that you'd rather focus on streaming, YouTube, content creation, and broadcast work if you can get any.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it just because you still have a year before you can even like compete at a proper level, or what was behind that decision, you know, that you don't want necessarily to go straight into that?
Mainly, it's like I could do another Ghost/Chaos type project, but right now, I feel like it's so easy to get into the RMRs that the people that would play with me, I don't think I would want to play with them because everyone's trying to like fight for a chance at the RMR, and like that's the end goal for a lot of people, is to be able to make it to the major. And when I was competing with like 2019, 2018, even 2020. It was a lot harder, I feel like, to get to the majors. And so it was easier to get players that were like pretty good and like good enough that they could probably go to the major, but the chances still were like, it was still stacked against them. So right now it's like, yeah, anybody that I would want to play with and that would want to play with me, it's just, it doesn't really line up right now. So it's just not worth it. I wouldn't want to do a project with a team that's not even close to being good enough.
Yeah.
Because I've done it so many times that the next time I would want to compete would be when I would have unrestricted access to the better players. And then what it would come down to is, would they believe in me, coming back from not really competing for a little bit, as someone that's going to be 35 years old at the time, would they believe in me and respect me enough to be able to listen to me, buy into my system and all that stuff? And that on the flip side of it, would I believe in them that they would be able to, do it at under higher pressure or on like a stage environment, or be able to learn enough if they're not quite at the level yet? Will I be able to get them to that level? And so it really depends on the project after that. But right now it's just like, I don't even want to think about trying it because I know that it's just not going to work. So anything I do right now is just kind of just because I'm streaming. I'm just like, I'm playing in competitions purely for stream views, right? So if I'm playing some Mythic Cup or some Cash Cup or a qualifier for one of these IEM events, it's all because I just want to grind through it. I don't really expect us to win. And if we somehow upset a wild card or an M80 or whatever along the way, it's like, haha, you guys suck. But I'm not trying to like actually do it.
And you haven't given a big thought into like coaching. Obviously, that removes the same barrier. At least okay, you can skip out on the RMR as a coach. You can skip out. You can help from the back.
Right.
Stuff like that. Have you given any thought to that sort of a job?
I've always considered just the way that I was in IGL and how much time I was putting into the game between playing the actual practice games, preparing for the practice beforehand, reviewing the practice after, leading like a demo review discussion. And then that was just like what I was doing, and I was spending that much time. I feel like as a coach, I'd be spending more time than that, having the same amount of stress or more stress. And then in my head, it was like also less pay. So why would I do like more work and more stress for less pay? If there was a way that I could do something where it was the same amount of stress and the same amount of pay, then maybe there's something to do with that. But I never really looked into it that much because it was just, I just don't know in what direction it would go, or I don't know if I would want to come into a team and just instantly want to start making changes and stuff like that. I've never really liked doing that, just like coming in and just being like, all right, get out.
Do you have any sort of like a roadmap with that in mind? I mean, you were talking about, okay, you still have a year before you can really be kind of unrestricted and be able to compete in these like open qualifiers, RMRs for the major and all that stuff. So is there any sort of a roadmap for you? Like, is that kind of like the goal that you have in mind, that like by the end of the year, you want to see if you can get into a team, you want to see if you can put together a team, or you're still keeping your options open at the moment with how it's going to go with all the broadcast stuff?
Well, the first major in 2025 would be June. So I figure I would have at least like a year from now even to be able to figure that out. And then if I wanted to start preparing for the major, I should do that, 4 months ahead of time. So it really comes down to how things shape up to be over, I guess, the winter break and the first couple months in the new year, and then kind of decide from there. I think that's also around the time that the tournament organizers would want to start booking. So I guess it depends on like two different things. One, how does this year go? How much do I like the desk work? How much time am I away from home? How much am I enjoying it? Am I, is it a lifestyle that I'm comfortable with? And if all those things are like, I enjoy this, then there's a good chance that I just stick with it. If it's like, I enjoy this, but there's a really good chance with competition and I still really want to get like my sticker in the game or something like that, then there's a chance that I shift away from it. But I think for the next few months, I'm not really going to know until closer to December or the new year, yeah.
Yeah. So like in that time, you just want to become kind of a mainstay at these big tournaments in terms of being on the desk. Is that the goal for now, at least?
Yeah, I would definitely do as much work as possible. I'm also open to doing Valorant work. The game itself was fine. I enjoyed it. It was never about the game for me, of why I kind of moved away from it. So Yeah, as much work as I can get for any of the bigger TOs, that would be good. I also think that just having worked just the few days that I've been doing it here, I feel like there is a chemistry aspect to it as well. So being able to work with familiar people would also mean that I would do a better job, but also maybe I'd enjoy it more as opposed to working with like a different set of people every time.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. I mean, good luck with all of that. Good luck with the rest of the year. Hopefully, you will get some more of those jobs that so you can get the experience up, and then who knows what's behind that, right? So so good luck with all that.
Thank you.
Perfect. All good. Great. Yeah, that was a good talk.
Oh shit.